Hello folks and welcome to our game here with myself, Shane Stevenson, joined today by Naoise Waldron. We're going to have Michael Ryan, former Waterford manager, on in a little bit of time as well. But we've had a fair old weekend, or certainly Sunday of hurling. We're brought to you by OurGame.com. Use the promo code OurGame to get 15% off. There's a huge range of absolutely brilliant items there. So go to OurGame.com, promo code OurGame. Naoise Waldron, you were doing, I think, radio commentary yesterday for Radio na Gaeltacht at the Leinster Tiddlywinks final between Kilkenny and Galway. And I say that because everyone's running down the Leinster Championship in recent times. But by God, you were fairly happy with that game, weren't you?
Yeah, I thought it was deadly. It was really enjoyable. Kind of like I was saying to you at half time, even as well, we were talking about, there was an awful lot of driving it and catching in the air, so even though both teams had a bit of a structure, they seemed to be trying as best as they could to bypass the entire midfield any opportunity they could. So it was good, six really good goals, really nice finishes, some of them well worked, some of them, and then obviously dramatic. And Conor Whelan, I thought, just was brilliant. There was a few really, really outstanding performances. Obviously, he was man of the match now, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. A lot of high-scoring game, 6 goals. What more could you want?
Well, I'll tell you what more you could want. There was a young lad from Breda. Actually, I don't know how young he is, but Breda in Down. He slipped on past security at the end.
He's gone. Oh my God. That's
gone. You can see more of that video at the OurGame Twitter and YouTube pages as well. Some cheeky bio, isn't he?
I was actually watching him for ages. I was like, what is this lad at? And I was standing beside Tommy Walsh, and I goes, hey, look at this lad. And we were trying to figure out what he was doing, but the security actually let him out. He didn't sneak out. He was trying to get TJ's attention for ages. He had a glove on him and everything. It was gas. It was actually pretty funny. That's a good idea for a stag, to be fair.
What do you think of the Kilkenny and Galway game overall? Now, look, I was just thinking, broadly speaking, with Limerick winning yesterday and with Kilkenny winning. Kilkenny won it, and to some degree they did it with the old guard. So Wally Walsh coming on, getting 1-2. Pádraig Walsh came on and got himself a point. And then, Killian Buckley, dream come true to score a goal like that. Whereas for Limerick, to some degree, it was the new guard who was getting it done for them. Adam English, he got a point for himself, and also, Cathal O'Neill, he got a couple of points as well. So it was the new guard in some way doing it for them. But what are you thinking with Kilkenny overall? To do it in that sort of fashion, that was celebrated far more vehemently than the last time you won All-Ireland in 2015 against Galway. Remember, people barely stayed around for that. I mean, it just shows what that meant by comparison, which is strange.
Yeah, and it was actually kind of cool as well. At the end of the match, the players stayed out in the field for ages and watched the highlights on the big screen. And then next thing, when Killian Buckley's goal was replayed, they all cheered and jumped again, and they were celebrating as if they were, watching it live or whatever. So it obviously meant an awful lot. Winning a game like that is absolutely mad. I've been on either end playing as well. But yeah, I don't think and Conor, talking about the old guard, Conor Fogarty had to start. Which was kind of surprising, I suppose, but he did well, did his job. But I don't think they could beat Limerick playing that way. And this was the thing throughout the year and all, and with Derek Ling and Michael Rice and all, the way they have the team set up, it's to kind of go through the lines and use the ball and use possession well, because they know they have to mix it and vary it. But yesterday there was Mikey Butler's goal. I suppose they kind of did that, to just the 1-2 kind of passing between Blanchfield and Mikey Butler, and nobody seemed to want to tackle either of them for some reason. But it was an awful lot of it was, let's get it, bypass the midfield and get it into the forwards as quick as we can. And they had enough ball winners. I'd say nearly every single one of the forwards got a high catch. It was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you know TJ Reid? I'm pretty sure now himself and Derek McNicholas of Westmeath are the 2 record championship appearance holders on 80 each, because I'm pretty sure Marty Morrissey said on commentary that it's 80, and I know McNicholas came on in every game as well, which would bring him up to 80. That's fair going when you consider, previous years, people were talking about how amazing it was that goalkeepers like Brendan Cummins were getting up to 73, and Brick Walsh then broke it by going up to 76. But there's TJ and Derek McNicholas, who's on the road for 20 seasons now. Incredible stuff.
nuts. And then like the other thing as well is like TJ wasn't a passenger yesterday either. I mean, he
No.
got what 3 points from play, deadly on the freeze. You know, and he's kind of obviously he's not zippy fast or anything like, right. He's nearly 36 now, but like he seems to be in the right place at the right time. Does an awful lot of work, gets hooks in, gets blocks in, kind of picks up ball, goes crossways, whatever. Rarely makes a mistake in possession as well. So he's far from a passenger anyway.
Yeah, and what did you make of Galway going 8 points behind, pulling it back, being in a winning position late on? And actually, even in the commentary, I presume you lost your mind a little bit when Killian Buckley's ball scuttered into the back of the net?
Yeah, a bit. Yeah, just one of them kind of things. Like because it was just nuts. Like because Galway had it was a funny kind of a game where it was like ebbing and flowing a lot. Where Galway at the first 20 minutes, I was like, gee, because they could really bury Kilkenny here now. And then just first goal, Mossy Keown's goal goes in, and Galway fell apart, and Kilkenny took over the game. And then next thing, Kilkenny get the gap, whatever, to 8 points, and Galway just clawed away back. And then Jason Flynn came in, made a massive difference, and obviously scored a goal or whatever. Connor Whelan started taking over the game. And Kevin Cooney then, who I think was nearly about to be taken off, scores a point, and then all of a sudden becomes a great ball winner, a great target man in full forward on his own. So they were going about it like, and a lot of people were kind of saying after that they thought Pádraig Mannion was really good, but I mean Owen Cody was probably Kenny's best forward, and they were marking each other. So
Mannion, like, and I think this will kind of tell you where I think the problems are for Galway at the moment. That they obviously feel that they don't have a marker for the full back line to go along with either. I mean, they don't want to take Daithí Burke out of the half back line and put him in the full back line. They have Grode McInerney back there for whoever they feel the bigger physical guy is. So then they're taking Pádraig Mannion, who has in the past been tried as a full back. Remember, he did the DDT on James Callan back in 2015. Or 15 it was. And they obviously feel that they need to put him back there, so they don't feel that they have 1v1 defenders. And, we'll come to Clare a little bit later on and how, the struggles with Aaron Gillan. But I thought he did good a couple of times in the first half in particular. Remember, Cody had a run on him, and he did brilliantly to turn him back a couple of times, and eventually there was a dispossession. I thought he did as well as anyone can really do on Owen Cody because he's such an exceptional forward. And did you find it interesting afterwards when he said in his acceptance speech, there's plenty of hurling in Leinster? So you're taking it very personally there, aren't you?
Yeah. Why not, sure? Everything is very personal, sure, especially when it comes to hurling. We're so tribal. But I know it was good. It was like, it was good that he said it, like, and kind of remember I actually gave man of the match in the All-Ireland semi-final in the club, and everyone was saying it should have been Joey Holden, but like, whatever. I gave it to Owen Cody. And he even said then when he got man of the match in the All-Ireland final, then he goes, "Are you sure this isn't for Joey Holden?" And everyone, one of these. So yeah, obviously Owen listens to a lot and takes things in. But I know, like, I love the way, like you were saying, kind of, it's very hard to mark on Cody because I love the way he always goes with his hand, be it his right hand or his left hand. He's always going to catch the ball. Like he'll never be trying to like do this tippy tappy control-y stuff, like, and then bring the defender into the game.
Aaron Gillan does do a lot of the tippy tappy stuff, but he's so good at it. It's really hard to get to it.
Yeah, so he kind of used his free hand, let's say, to kind of hold and control. He's that strong, like, to hold and control a defender, create a space, and use his hurling on like a wand, like. But Gillan then as well goes with his hand an awful lot too. But Cody is just class at it. And in the second half, he had an awful perfect patch there where I was like, God, Mannion was under awful pressure. But then, kind of Mannion was kind of coming in. But then, of course, it was him that gave the best kick pass you'll probably see in Croke Park this year to Killian Buckley. Whereas I know people are like, I should never hurl. It's like, just stand on it or kick it towards the sideline. Don't kick it across.
I think you're being very harsh, and you just want to get it out there. Come on, you've all done the same thing.
I know, but they had a million chances to get it out as well. Like when it was down the corner after a couple of people mishandled it, wouldn't you think Jay's just jumping the ball? Remember, like Brian Whelan did against Antrim back in, what was that, 2000 or Derry, sorry, back in 2001 when he had no hurls, so he just jumped on the ground on the slitter and just delayed the game because Derry were coming in waves and they were on top of him. And like one of them kind of things, like when you're in the corner like that, just jump on it, let the ref throw it in. And then
Didn't they looked out of gas? I mean, Gerard McInerney made a couple of goals at swinging at the ball, and you could just see he was out of gas. I think maybe Joseph Cooney as well. It just so happened to be their players who were over 30 that were on the ball. And to be fair, look, the lads, they were trying their hearts out. But if you're tired, you're tired. What can you do about it? Nobody. Even in one stage in the second half, remember that extended period of play between Limerick and Clare when they were battering the heads off each other. Gerard Hegarty looked to have just got a yard. And then he sort of maybe out of tiredness didn't strike the ball clear the way. These are tough games to compete in.
Yeah, and it was absolutely roasting yesterday as well. This is the thing. And then on the field, obviously, it's hotter. So it was just one of the, because the two games kind of finished like that, where it was all this fumbling for possession. Now, I know there was fouls and stuff in the Clare and Limerick game, which were kind of a bit mad. But it was like it fell out of McInerney's hand, then it fell out of Cooney's hand twice, and then it was on the ground, and Mannion, Colin Mannion got a good block on TJ, who kind of fumbled it as well, and then you're kind of going, just get it out. But it just so happened it falls to the fellow with no hurl who kicks it across, and literally Killian Buckley is standing like that, and it goes into his fingers. And as soon as he caught it, I was like, he's going to bury this now. Like you just knew. And again, like probably a few people were probably surprised that Killian Buckley was coming in. And sure, that looks like he scores a goal, and they all went mad after for a long time.
Yeah, and I suppose the way it worked out with that scramble on the sideline, it just dragged all the traffic away from the most dangerous part of the pitch, really, didn't it? Because everyone got drawn towards it, and John Donnelly did brilliantly to knock the ball across. For Killian Buckley, with the amount of injuries he's had, he was an All-Star back in 2015, if I remember correctly. All the injuries he's had, I'd say this is kind of a huge reward for all the rehab and work he's had to do on his own in the meantime.
Yeah, and sure, this is the thing. This is why you do it. I suppose, and how many times do you be practicing this situation when you're pucking against the wall, and you're like, whatever.
No, and I practice clearing
it. So, you're practicing just driving it, where you're kind of going, Kilkenny are 2 points down, All Ireland final ball, whatever. You're in it, bang, and it always ends up in the back of the net, But it was. To be fair to him, well, right. He hasn't played in the forwards much at all for Kilkenny. It was a fairly cool finish that he gives the dummy with the left, takes a couple of steps, brings it in just a little bit extra, and then there was lads crisscrossing in front of the goal, and he puts it right down into the corner. And I was kind of trying to see on the replay, did somebody that ran across get a kind of a hurl onto it, and just slightly tap it even more into the corner? But I couldn't tell in the replay.
Let's call a spade a spade. He mishit it.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, big time. And do you know what the other thing? So number one, it was doubly crucial, Pádraig Mannion losing his hurley, because obviously number one, he couldn't just lift the ball and drive it. Number two, Buckley sidestepped him and he went to dive with the hand. He might have got a block in if he had his hurley. So it's just, Buckley did what he needed to do. Balls in the back of the net. He's the hero. Nothing can change that. But, we're kind of looking at the small little margins. He slightly mishit it, I felt. Mannion didn't have his hurley. And come here, speaking of Mannion, Cathal Mannion playing that sort of deep role where he was kind of midfield but kind of dropping and sweeping. And Wally Walsh's goal in the first half, unbelievable catch over Fintan Burke, who's no slouch in the air. Solos on, and Cathal Mannion was coming back, but eventually Wally Walsh pulled away from him a little bit. And I wonder if Cathal Mannion was fully fit and he didn't have hamstring injuries bothering him. You'd expect Cathal Mannion with his speed to get that hook in or catch up with Wally Walsh, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and there was a couple of times that when Walter had the ball in the second half as well, the goal, obviously, but in the second half as well, he was tearing away from lads up the sideline. I was kind of going, what year is this? Just looking at it, whoever was supposed to be marking him couldn't, whatever about trying to stop him catching the ball in the air, but couldn't actually keep into him. But Cathal Mannion, if he was fully right, he probably would have caught him. But then there's other things kind of sometimes when I be watching Galway, you kind of go, God, is Cathal Mannion nearly too far back? Do they need somebody like him kind of further up the field and adding to the scoreline? Because he just, I think, he's such a good hurler, obviously, and it's great to have him back there and he uses the ball well and stuff, but he actually made one or two kind of howling mistakes yesterday on possession. But
crossfield stick pass into somebody's legs, through traffic. It was very unlike him.
Yeah, where John Donnelly, it nearly ended up as a goal chance. You're going to go, what was he? Anyway, but I just think they're kind of probably taking something from their game, having him that far back. Because if you come back for a while and then go up and be back for a while, don't be just back and stay back, kind of, because he's just such a good hurler, and he's usually it's like Adrian Mullen, let's say. Losing Adrian Mullen, you're losing probably 4 or 5 points per game. You're probably taking away 3 points per game when Man United is that far back, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, and like you mentioned Adrian Mullen there, I'd argue he's, alongside Adrian Mullen and Owen Cody and of course still TJ Reid, Kilkenny's best player. No Richie Reid, no Mikey Carey, who's obviously been drafted in. He picked up sort of an injury as well, which makes it all the more crucial that Kilkenny got through the front door here and all the way to a semi-final, rather than having to go through and play the winners of tip-off league, then a semi-final, and maybe you're losing more lads to injury rather than getting lads back. So I think that was huge for Kilkenny, and obviously a bit of a disaster for Galway as well, that they now have to turn around and face that. Another thing I was going to say, though, some of the players there that really impressed me, I thought David Blanchfield catching a couple of balls over Joseph Cooney, who'd gotten 5 from play against Dublin, didn't really impact the game. Tom Monaghan didn't really either. Conor Cooney, quiet again. Hugh Lawler as well. At times I wonder, right, because he's so good at commanding the square, absolutely brilliant performance again. But with Conor Whelan scoring 1-6, and he really does know how to lock down Conor Whelan. Was there temptation to bring him out? But you understand why he minds the square at the same time. But by God, you have a couple of high towers back there in that Kilkenny defence now, and it's starting to look pretty good back there.
Yeah, and like the thing, I was doing like a pre-game thing with Cathal Moore on Saturday on Radio na Gaeltacht as well, and we were kind of talking about who do you think is going to win, and I said, oh well, sure, look at, because Mikey Butler's probably not going to be playing, and Mossy Keown probably won't be playing, and Adrian Mullen is going to be out. I think Galway will probably win. But then Mikey Butler played and Mossy Keown played, and they each scored a goal. So I look like a right clown. But
that was before you went on the radio.
With Blanchfield, like I don't know how many catches did he get in the air. Like he was just, any time they went long and high, he seemed to come down with it. And actually, to be fair as well, Tom Phelan, the other end in the forwards, I was very impressed with his aerial ability and kind of the danger he posed when he was in possession and all, and the work he did, because he didn't play much at all during the league, and he did far better than I thought he would. But yeah, between Hugh Lawler, Tommy Walsh was probably under pressure a few times, but then got in with a couple of really good, like, kind of blocks just on the ball, or like a last second hook and stuff. And Mikey Butler obviously was good again, scored a savage goal. So the defence is kind of coming good. Paddy Deegan was back. He started centre back, with Conor Fogarty being pushed into midfield. So, and I mean, Paddy Deegan, like Conor, I think he was marking Conor Cooney. It was kind of hard to tell, because sometimes Conor went in and was isolated in full forward on Hugh Lawler, and I kind of thought, geez, this might work. It didn't at all. And Paddy Deegan looked very comfortable back centre back. There was nothing coming through the middle, which is always a great sign if you're playing centre back or full back. And there was, even when Hugh, like you were kind of saying there, like, he commands it really well, but even when Hugh was just in his own one-on-one, he wasn't like screaming and roaring and telling lads to come back like you probably would be. He just seemed to be like, right, look, if it comes in, like, I'm going to have to go and get it. And he did really well. He's after becoming a rock solid fullback, I think.
Yeah, because I thought, like, a few years ago, he, because he was so slender and obviously needing to fill out and all that kind of stuff, now he's just like a massive unit. He's an octopus, arms and legs everywhere. Is he the best fullback in the country?
I don't know. I don't know. He's probably not far off it now. Whereas a few years ago, you would have said no. Whereas it's great, like, that he is improving all the time. Like, because when JJ was gone, they tried how many lads, at full back, and then next thing they were like, it seemed to be like, right, well, here we'll throw in Hugh there, and he was good. But then there was times like Limerick and stuff, and, against Tip maybe as well, and you're like, oh God. But then the last couple of years now, he's been rock. He's an animal. Like, he is an animal. And like you said, anytime Conor Whelan is in him, he seems to handle him. And I thought the way Galway used Conor Whelan was really smart, where he was outside in front and then getting onto the breaks. And the amount of times he broke onto a ball, and then you can't stop when he has the momentum going that way. Whereas Hugh, up until then, had been kind of closing him down. They moved him out. So is he the best fullback in the country? I don't know, because there's an awful lot of good fullbacks now. That I think anyway. So yeah, he's probably up there, right? Top 3, top 4 anyway.
Yeah, he's up there with I suppose Owen O'Donnell. Would you call Sean Finn a fullback? I mean, he wears number 2, but there's a bit of a fullback. Dan Morrissey's obviously excellent as well. Who else are we missing there? Conor Prunty's excellent.
Yeah, see, I'd say that would be my top three anyway.
Michael
Would
Breen
be
will get there
oh no,
if he'd been
you
put there
love
6 years ago.
yeah, you love the Mikey Breen fullback way, but that would be
Yeah, but
probably my top three.
ultimately, wasn't they proven right?
Oh sure, yeah. Throw enough, throw enough at the wall, it'll soon stick. Sure, the sun even shines on a dog's backside some days, I suppose. But yeah,
Come
that'd
here
be
now,
probably my
like,
top three. Would be Hugh, Owen O'Donnell, and Morrissey.
yeah. I was just thinking afterwards that TJ Reid, Old Cody, they were part of a Ballyhale team that lost in heartbreaking fashion to a last-second goal a couple of years ago against Ballygunner. So they know the other side of the coin. So that would have been it. Like, I suppose that's part of why they celebrated it so hard, because it happened in such circumstances. But for Galway, just looking at their scores, Evan Nyland, he scored 4 from play and 8 frees. Conor Whelan, we mentioned, won 6. Brian Kincannon scored 3, including his third one, which put them 2 points up, and he probably thought that was the end of the road there, and they were going to claim their first title in 5 years. Kevin Cooney, excellent, bit of a coming-of-age performance with the 3 points. Excellent down the stretch, I should say. Jason Flynn, nice goal. But how tough is it going to be for Galway to pick themselves up? Like last year, they faded out in the last 20 minutes against Kilkenny in the Leinster final, and Henry Shefflin was almost at a loss to explain what happened afterwards, and he was kind of a bit deflated with the fade out. This time they didn't. They lost in heartbreaking circumstances, but at least he can go in and feel very proud of what his players produced in defeat. So can they pick themselves up again for Tip or Offaly in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I suppose.
Sorry, not 2 weeks, in a week.
Yeah, so it's hopefully, just you would hope so, because it'd be awful to kind of.
Sorry, it is 2 weeks. Obviously, Tip and Offaly is this weekend.
Yeah. So I suppose it's good that they have the 2 weeks, but it has to be kind of parked now, basically Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever they go back training. It has to be parked now. That right, look, we're 1 game away from being where we wanted to be anyway in the All Ireland semi-final. So you have to win the game. You have to put that behind them. And I mean, last year was. It's funny, like, because last year they were awful in the Leinster final. Like, it was just they were terrible. And then this year they were really good, but then just got like he had up on the thing there, like the Buckley dagger, and it was like literally that is what it was. They just got stabbed in the heart last second, game over. You're kind of going, oh. And they all collapsed to the ground in real dramatic style. You're kind of going, God, that's a killer. But the thing is, there's a bigger prize at stake here. Like, get back to training, get back to doing what they were doing well. Forget about the game. Well, don't totally forget about it, because they let in 4 goals. You can't. This is the thing. You cannot be letting in 4 goals and think you're going to be winning championship matches. Like,
well, is that the problem with playing an attacker as your sweeper?
See, maybe like this is the other thing, maybe. But they were just too open. And then say even for Mikey Butler's goal, like where. Like, so Blanchfield catches the ball, passes it to Butler. Butler gives it back, and then Blanchfield gives it back. You're going to go, why did nobody tackle one person? And they're running the whole way up the sideline. Run over and knock them over the sideline. Do something. Meet them somewhere. And then kind of, I think it was it Dahi Burke or McInerney ended up kind of, yeah, and he kind of didn't know whether to, go or stay or swivel or what. And you're kind of going, just go to him. It's a corner back. Go and see what he's going to do with the ball when you go and meet him. And even if you just wrap him up, wrap him up and give him a clumsy free or whatever, it's better than letting him shoot at the goal. So they're going to have to sort out the defence, definitely. But other than that, I think, park it, do it, concentrate on what they did well, improve the defence, and they could be very dangerous this year, I think.
Yeah, the likes of, I think, Tom Monaghan and Joseph Cooney are going to need to have bigger games. And Conor Cooney, it's like at this stage now, he has had a quiet season. He's been an excellent player over the years, and St. Thomas's, he's done so much with them, but he needs a big performance or two, and it's going to be a big one the next day out, whether it's against Tip or Offaly. Obviously, everyone expects it to be Tip, but I thought it was interesting the attendances at the 2 games yesterday, officially anyway, at Croke Park. And look, maybe a lot of the boxes weren't filled or whatever because there's 10-year tickets sold there, but officially it was announced 24,483. There was 43,756 at Clare v Limerick. I just wonder, like, people couldn't get to both games because they're both on Sunday, one after the other. I would have loved to have gone to both games. Like, did that hurt attendances as well? Because a lot of people were like, well, I'd like to get to Kilkenny Galway, but I also want to see the other one, so I'll just stay at home and watch them both on TV.
Yeah, in some ways it's like I can see I can see why they do it, but then it does take from the attendance, especially for the Leinster final, because now the other thing as well is it was a glorious sunny day. People are probably like, hey, let's just watch the 2 games with a couple of drinks on the TV, handy out, deadly. Because yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe if you started rotating them, that they were on the same weekend, yeah, but one Saturday, one Sunday. I thought that'd nearly be better. Like as in for people to try and get the boat and pack it out, because like I don't know what it looked like on the TV now and all, but you're kind of going like 25 or 24 and a half, whatever, 24,500, 25,000. It's actually a decent crowd, but then in Croke Park they're all lost. But then I have the earphones on, so the crowd sounds really loud in my ears, like, because they're obviously mic'd up and it's elevated in my ears. But yeah, I think it does hurt it. A sunny weekend like that, you know, lads probably just didn't bother going. Like, simple as that.
So anything else you want to say about this team, this Galway team, where they can go, trying to get Concannon, Cooney, Whelan, Nyland, and I suppose maybe even Jason Flint, get them all firing on the one day. Cathal Mannion too as well. Potentially they might look at moving him back into the forwards, but maybe it's a little bit late in the year at this stage and they'll just keep him where he is. Yeah,
like I like the way they're set up in the forwards. They're very smart what they do. They kind of, when they're defending a puck out, they're all kind of up and nearly in the normal kind of 6 positions. So they're not letting anything go short. And then as soon as it goes long over their head, well, now, Limerick might be different, or if Tip or whoever they end up playing might be different, the way they set up or the way they puck it out. They might go short, but Kilkenny just weren't going short against them. They just said, no, we're not going to risk that. We have enough ball winners. Let's go over the top. And as soon as it was pucked, they all turned around and ran out, except for one. So one would stay in full forward, and everybody else was outside the 45, right? And then so it would be one, and this was the thing, so it'd be one in the backs or it'd be one around midfield or whatever, and instead of trying to use possession and work around and move, they'd strike it, and then everyone would come like a train and onto breaks and swarm around and get on, and that's how like Conor Whelan scored his goal. He got 2 points, I'd say, from it as well. Concannon got a couple of, at least one off it as well, and Nyland I thought Nyland was really good yesterday. I love watching it. I really like watching him play as well. Savage, obviously, long range frees and free taking, but then even from play as well. Now yesterday he got a couple of nice points. He was in the game a good bit. Concannon kind of was in it, then out of it, and then when it was important, like you said, he got the point to put them 2 up, and you kind of thought, that's a win of the game there now. Fair play to you. But just look at, like, the thing is like, I think from like midfield up, they did as well as they probably could have. They definitely scored enough to win. It's just, like I said, and you know, we've been talking about, you cannot concede 4 goals. Like, it's, you know, it's 12 points. Like, you know, it's very hard to overcome 4 goals. So yeah, it's tightening up the defense, and I think the 4 best teams were probably playing yesterday. And again, look, they were the 4 semi-finalists last year as well. Because Galway, again, and we always say this, on their day, they're as good as anyone can be, but they need to tighten up the defence, and they need Conor Cooney. If he's going to be starting all the time, they need Conor Cooney playing well again.
Okay, delighted to say that Michael Ryan, former Waterford manager, joins myself and Naoise now. How are you, Michael?
Not too bad at all now.
Good stuff.
Michael,
what did you make of Galway against Kilkenny?
Well, I suppose it's the same old story, wasn't it? Kilkenny found a way to win the match, and Galway found a way to lose the match. And I'm really sorry for Galway, because they played a lot of good hurling in the second half, and they fought their way back and came from 8 points down and put themselves in a winning position. And you know, you couldn't see any other result with 2 minutes with 30 seconds to go. But the ball out of the corner flag, 2 Kilkenny players surrounded by several Galway players, and yet the ball was walked into the middle, and they created a goal chance. So that's Kilkenny. Never give up, fight to the very end, give their everything, and believe in themselves. And I think maybe the biggest difference between the 2 teams was the belief. Kilkenny believed they could pull it off, and they did. And maybe there was a bit of doubt in Galway's mind, but you'd have to be sorry for Galway, no question about that.
And do you think Galway can come back from this? Obviously, it's Tipperary or Offaly in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, I think that there's a big test for them now, because there's no doubt about it. There will be some damage, mental damage, psychological damage to Galway after that. But having said that, they've a decent record against Tipperary, assuming, of course, that Tipperary beat Offaly. I mean, you shouldn't take that for granted either. I'd expect them to beat Offaly, but I think Galway will bounce back. It's going to be an intriguing quarter-final now, and there's no question about that. And there's a lot at stake, and I think the 4 teams in Leicester semi-final were mentioned, but I wouldn't rule Tipperary out of this equation either. Tipperary could have a big say in this championship.
I hope you're right with that one, Michael. We'll